Hi everybody, Deb Walker here to talk to you today about communication. Our Lesson 11 discussion asks us to read Case 11, The Poorly Informed Walrus, from our Organizational Behavior textbook by Yulbein, Schimmerhorn, and Osborne to first identify the barriers to communication that are evident in the fable. Now, in order to identify the barriers to communication in the fable, we first must understand that barriers to communication actually create misunderstandings because the message is not successfully being sent or received. Now, let's take a look at the different barriers to communication that can cause misunderstandings. They include interpersonal barriers, physical barriers, semantic barriers, and cultural barriers. Now, what do these barriers entail? Interpersonal barriers occur due to a lack of trust, personality conflicts, stereotypes, or preconceived notions. Physical barriers can be from noise or interruptions, distractions, or even where communicators are positioned. Semantic barriers, these can be caused by not presenting a clear message due to poor word choice or of conflicting ideas. Cultural barriers. These are often caused by ethnocentrism or by the feeling that one's own culture is superior to others, or by parochialism, which is believing that your culture has figured everything out and you have the only one and right way to do things. For example, nonverbal communication and languages are also considered cultural barriers that can create a basic unwillingness to reach out to others and try to communicate with them. Now that we understand these barriers, let's examine the case of the poorly informed walrus. Now, there was this herd of walruses. Why isn't it walry? But anyway, now they had this leader who was the biggest and the baddest and, of course, the crankiest. They called him the old man. Nobody wanted to tell him anything because he would explode and yell at them. Furthermore, no one wanted to be the bearer of bad news to him for fear of him retaliating against the messenger. So everyone kowtowed to him and appeased him by either outright lying to him or keeping information from him. Meanwhile, things were not going well for the rest of the herd in terms of food and resources. But did anyone inform you know who? Nope. Only his yes man in chief, Basil, who would keep feeding him BS in order to appease him. Even when the new herd moved in on their territory, Basil downplayed it to the old man. Things were going so badly under the old man's leadership that all of the walruses defected to the other herd, and only Basil and the old man remained. The old man couldn't believe they left and thought that things had been going so well. And because Basil was too afraid to tell the old man the truth. Now let's dissect the fable and identify the communication barriers that are evident. Were there any interpersonal barriers? Yes. Basil and the others were afraid of the old man because his reputation as someone who was angry and contentious. Therefore, they didn't trust what his reaction would be to any of the bad news. The members of the herd were also much more demure, so there were personality conflicts between them. There was also some prejudice because they had preconceived notions as to how he would react. So were there any physical barriers? Yes, because the old man was perched up on a rock on high. He was segregated from the others, so his very position made it hard for the others to communicate with him. Were there semantic barriers? Plenty. Basil continued to feed the old man a bunch of nonsense, lies, and misinformation, trying to put a positive spin on a disastrous situation. Were there any cultural barriers? Perhaps. Since the old man felt superior and believed he knew everything, he was not really open to communicating with members of his own herd, let alone the new herd that moved in to take over his territory. Nor did Basil try to communicate with the other herd. He loyally stuck with the tried and true old man, as any good yes man would do. Now, what have we learned here? The case of the poorly informed walrus is actually a fable that teaches us to speak up and communicate and to tell the truth and not to be yes men or yes women, as this will only lead to bad outcomes. Thank you for watching.